Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the Docxonomy Intelligent Webinar Series. Today, the topic of our webinar is going to be Intelligent Search for Life Sciences. Docxonomy is a data science platform that focuses on intelligent search and knowledge discovery. And at Docxonomy, we want to enable the world to more easily and affordably access their content, thus revolutionizing enterprise search, making it and you more intelligent. Today, we're going to be focusing on life sciences. The Docxonomy platform is used across various industries: life sciences, energy and engineering, financial services, to name a few. Today, our founder and CEO, Brian Reynolds, will be going through a few slides, giving an introduction into the Docxonomy platform, and then going through a demo that'll last probably about 30 to 40 minutes. At this point, I'll turn it over to Brian. Brian?
Thank you very much, George. My pleasure to everyone that's on the webinar today to talk to you. As George said, my name is Brian Reynolds. It's a pleasure to at least get to speak to all of you about Docxonomy and what we're doing here. Myself, I live in the Philadelphia, PA area. And just a little background on my expertise. I've been in this industry for quite some time. Coming up on 30 years now that I've been dealing with unstructured content management. As you can see here, I've got my LinkedIn information. Feel free to link into me or to the company. You can go to canyouFindIt.com and check us out on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn. But let's go ahead and kind of dive right in. Before we get started, let's do some real quick webinar logistics. As you'll see here on the screen, I've got the menu bar for our Zoom webinar meeting. The main thing to notice here for this meeting, because we have a lot to cover, is if you want to ask a question, you can click on the Q&A button, and that button will allow you to ask a question. Along with myself, which I'll be giving the webinar, but we have others that are monitoring. The questions that you have, we'll try to answer those to you in the window. If we don't get to all your questions and get them all answered, we absolutely will follow up and answer all your questions at least by email. So please feel free though during the webinar to ask questions. So let's go ahead and kind of jump in. For those of you that this may be the first time you're on the webinar or first time hearing about us, or maybe you're a return customer that's listening into what we're talking about, I'll go ahead and give you a quick brief background. So Docxonomy was established in 2016. And really, it came from all my past. As I said, I've been in this industry for quite some time. I used to own a software consulting company called Citrof Technologies. My business partner and I, we sold that company after we ran it for 13 years to EMC, where I continued to run that practice globally and grow it around the world. What this really sets up for us is we've been in this space for a long time, myself and my team. We've been doing this type of work with unstructured content for many, many years, and we've done hundreds of projects around the world, integrating various different solutions. So the one thing that we've noticed over these years was that there was a shortcoming when it came to enterprise search. In all the solutions that we would integrate, all the things that we would put together, we would always fall short on the search side of it. It's just never been done quite well. I know there are many enterprise solutions. Those of you that are on the webinar probably own multiple different versions of those types of solutions within your infrastructure, and they just have never been implemented the right way. So one of the primary visions or the primary focus that we set when we started Docxonomy was to tackle the enterprise search and solve that problem and solve it in a way that would really truly work. Now, when you think about search, I think it's important to kind of identify or place sort of an understanding around how much time do we actually waste looking for stuff within the organization. Now, it's interesting to note, we've looked at several studies and we continue to analyze this problem and look across multiple different data sets to learn about it. But we found three sort of key components that we thought were really, really interesting. So there was a McKinsey study and an IDC study and a Nintex study that were conducted over the past few years. And of the surveying of over 268 top executives within the organization, within multiple different organizations, actually multiple different verticals, we identified that there's a huge amount of time wasted. 1.8 hours a day is wasted, or 22% of a person's day is wasted looking for content. In the IDC study, we saw similar numbers, and it was more like 30%, or 2.5 hours a day. And then what I thought was even more compelling, because those studies were a little bit older, but the most recent study, which we saw in 2018 from Nintex, it was over 1,000 different employees across multiple industries. They found that 49%, we're talking almost half of those users say they still have trouble finding documents, even today, even within the last, less than a year ago. And now that's a huge number. That's really compelling. And the thing is, when you think about this, companies have spent a fortune, huge amounts of investment on the information that gets created within the archives and within the file repositories and data repositories within the company. You think about the life of a company, that they've collected this information, that they've spent millions, hundreds of millions, billions, trillions of dollars over the lifespan of a large organization, generating this knowledge, generating this information. And it's trapped. There's no way to get it. I mean, another way to kind of look at this is to say, let's put it into kind of a dollar sense, right? How much revenue is wasted searching? If you just let's just speculate here, $80,000 a year per employee, right? Let's just say that's an average, high or low, you can figure it out. Let's assume 1,000 people, within the company, or 1,000-person company. You're talking about spending $24 million a year looking for content, and that's where that most of the money is going, or a big chunk of it, 30%, right? So it's safe to say that companies spend a lot of money paying employees to look for something that they already paid them to create. And we think this is just a huge problem. So this is really the precursor to why we started this company. So, we're so used to searching Google and so used to getting answers instantaneously at our fingertips that it's sort of unheard of that this would be a problem in the public domain. But when you go behind the firewall, it totally is. It's a huge problem. We feel that searching business content should be as easy as Googling the weather. That's one of our taglines. We talk about it all the time. We use artificial intelligence, machine learning, natural language processing. We have these powerful engines that we've built underneath our architecture, underneath our platform, that allow you as a user to easily, just like you Google today, to Google-like, right, search for the content that exists within your organization with all of this sort of hidden knowledge. And we'll talk about how that works and what we do. But that's the crux. That's the main aspect of what we do. We take content in its unstructured format. We process it like a human would, but using machines, and automatically classify it, automatically extract metadata out of the content itself, and raise that up into an index so that you can now begin to search, ask questions, and get answers and be productive against all your repositories in the organization. Of course, you can start small and link up one and then add more as you go or anything. There's a lot of flexibility, but the idea that is that you can search your business content, just like you Google the weather. And that's the power behind what we've done. So what are some of the key areas where that, plays a factor? Well, there are a lot. There are more than are listed here. We've 4 that we kind of target on right here. Search, of course, as we've already discussed, the ability to index all the repositories just by pointing a connector or what you might think of as a crawler without ever having to move the source, without ever having to copy it. You don't need to give it to us. We just index it in place. We leave the business processes running as they are, and we index that data and bring it over. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when I get to the connector page. We can also be utilized in migrations. That's another key area. You're trying to move data from one system to another system. And a lot of times that data is really messy or dirty. Maybe you acquired it through an acquisition, or, maybe it's just was old or it's dated, but you want to bring it over and clean it up. We can be utilized to automatically identify that, classify that data, extract intelligent meta information, and use that in a mapping exercise to then migrate the data. Governance, another key area. Because of what we've done and how we analyze data, we can actually intelligently, very quickly find and identify problems. So think of like GDPR, for instance, and locating social security numbers or passport information or personal PII type information. We can automatically look across many, many documents and very quickly identify that and raise that up. Part of the system built right in. Archiving, another key area. There's lots of mergers and acquisitions in today's age. A lot of times you end up with applications that you need to keep for regulatory purposes, but they're not really providing value. They're costing a fortune to keep running. And you could migrate that content, let us become the source, gain all this intelligence, and decommission the applications. And we have use cases on that, on how much less expensive we are than your traditional archive solutions. So there's so many more areas that we can tackle. But let's kind of just touch base real quickly, and I don't want to go too deep into this, but it's important to frame out who we are and what we do. So as I talked about, we have a connector technology that sits outside, that sits behind the firewall, and that indexes content. Okay, so you can point it to Documentum, or you can point it to SharePoint, or a file share, or a database, or Viva, whatever you use. And then you can turn those on, and they will intelligently crawl the data. They don't touch it, they don't change it, they don't manipulate it, they just index it, and they serve that index back to the cloud. We also have a very powerful user interface, which we'll see today. We'll actually demo it. Of course, there's an API layer behind, so if you need to plug this in for different reasons, we can handle that, no problem. But the core, the crux of what is our system is the intelligence engine. The intelligence engine is made up of a bunch of components that are super powerful engines of themselves, and coupled together create this rich experience. So we have a natural language processing engine, which is the NLP engine. We have a speech recognition engine, which will auto-transcribe audio and video files and convert what's being said into text so that we can analyze it. We have a rich media engine to deal with all different kinds of media types. We have an auto-classification engine, so we can train the system and teach it to know what your different document types are. So if you have a prescribing information or a medication guide or a approval letter, we separate that without a user having to enter anything. We just analyze and say, oh, we know that's this document or that document, and we automatically set it for you. We have a discovered value engine. So that's around the GDPR side or around the governance side, the ability to set up expressions and analyze and look for anomalies within the data. We also have a similarity engine that's built in that allows us to make recommendations. So if you're looking at a particular document, we know already that you actually want to look at these other documents too, even though you don't know they exist or what system they came from, but they're relevant. We also have a question and answering engine. What good is all of this if I can't ask it a question and get an answer back? And we'll see examples of this in the demo. But I want to highlight in particular about the connectors, because this is a really key and unique area. From a connector standpoint, you have to look at what we've done here. So in many cases, some systems will offer an API, and you have to go and write code and develop and build your own connectors. Or they have loose connectors that are kind of weak. They're not as deep. We come from a background of solution integrators. We know how to integrate systems together. So it made no sense for us to just give you, the customer, an API and make you go off and write the connector. We pre-wrote the connectors. We built a powerful framework that we can extend and build connectors on top of. We've already got a bunch of ready-built connectors that work today. We continue to add more, and we'll support that mechanism for you as a customer. If you have something that you want that we don't have, we'll entertain. We'll be more than happy to entertain developing that connector for you. And because we built a framework, we can build those connectors in hours, days, weeks, not months, not years, very quickly. And it's quite powerful. Now, when I say pre-built connectors, I mean just that. These are pre-coded, pre-built, and all you have to do is configure them. So you point it to the repository, you give it the credentials it needs, you tell it what you want to crawl, you turn it on, and you pretty much forget about it. It runs on the schedule you tell it to run, and it indexes the data as often as you like. And then the beauty is that information flows in, the index flows in, and you gain intelligence out of it. Now, the last thing I leave you on slides before we dive into a demo is we know that you probably have one, if not more than one, 2, 3, 4, 5. In some cases, we've talked to customers, enterprise search type solutions that you've either tried to implement and they failed, or you're currently implemented, or just aren't really being used. Because we're talking about enterprise search, or what we call intelligent search, what we want you to do is suspend disbelief as we give you a demo. Please understand, we've been in this industry for a long time, and what we understand is that you do not have what we have. This is very unique, we feel, and we've made it in such a way that it will be, I think, really sort of a complete paradigm shift in how we approach looking for content within our companies, within the repositories behind the firewall. So we ask you to suspend disbelief as you get a demo. And I just want to clarify, everything you see requires zero user entering of metadata. Everything that's coming out of it was derived by the system, and it intelligently found it by doing nothing more than configuring a connector, pointing to the repository, turning it on, and then beginning to search. That's it. It's very simple. So with that, what I'd like to do is get into a demo. Okay, great. So now, as I've transitioned to my other screen so that I can demonstrate this, I skipped over the login, so we actually didn't log in, but we obviously would log in and you would gain access to the system. But what we want to show here is, the concept of Google, right? So everybody knows how to search Google, and that experience should always be the same. So when you log into our application, the very first thing that you see is a search screen, right? That's one that looks very similar and familiar to what we're normally searching on. So let's start by just doing very simplistic search. So let's search on a couple of keywords. In this case, let's make these side effects, right? So let's search on, I used this recently. So let's search on the term vomiting and dehydration. And let's go ahead and execute that search. As you can see, the results come back real quick, and we're in to the result. We got 76 results here. You'll see that the documents come back in what you would expect to see, sort of a list of all the documents sorted by relevance, which is most important. We do content snippeting, so we're basically pulling out snippets of content from the document itself with highlighting of terms, and those are all scored. So we're bringing the most relevant documents back that matter here. We can see the basic information. This came from a Documentum repository. As we scroll down, we can see this document here that it came from a source that was uploaded directly. This one came from a SQL database in this case. So, we have a mix of different kinds of document types that have come back here. We can also easily hover over the thumbnail there and kind of get the first page, so we can say, is this the document that I really want? So real quick, we can look at that. But what's really powerful here is that we've done this deep analysis of this content. All the data that is being derived or has come back within the UI has come back automatically, right? So no user had to enter anything. All we did was point to the file, as I said before. But we can also visualize data. So let's click on the Insights tab here. And what we'll see is we can see what's most relevant in a dashboard-like form. And this is all fully configurable within the environment, but we've put together a basic dashboard here that's relevant. So we've uploaded this content from multiple different document types that we found out on the web through FDA and so forth. And so it's just public facing information that we're using for the demo, but imagine this could be your data behind, right? Very similar type data, but your data that's not in the public domain. You can see we're rolling up pharmaceutical names and side effects, routes of administration, people that we identified. All this is information that's being derived out of the content, and this is what is most relevant in the search result for these two side effects. Let's go ahead and go back to the list real quick. We can also see over here from an aggregation standpoint or from a facet standpoint, those also exist, and it makes it very filterable. So let's say I'm interested in lorazepam. Okay, so if I click on the lorazepam tab there, I filter my document set down to 3, and I can say, oh, here's this Abilify. This is what I was looking for. So let me go ahead and click on that and jump into it. So what you'll see as we log into this is we open up into a viewer, okay, and it's a text-based viewer. So you'll see the highlighting here, color coding of our search terms, dehydration, vomiting, and of course what our filter was, which was lorazepam. And the reason that we show this in a textual-based viewer is that we can very quickly jump through all the hits and identify what's important. And if I go back one, we'll see we found lorazepam here, but we also see this from a contextual standpoint, basically from a noun phrase. This is all relevant. It all belongs together. And so we contextually understand that. Now, if you want to see the original document, if you have that enabled, depending on what your requirements are, you can click on the view button here and we'll show you a PDF rendition of the original content, and we can scroll through that. So that's totally at your control, your access. You'll also see over here, we pull all the metadata on the file, and that's all searchable. We also have pulled out, all the various side effects that we identified within this content. And again, that's no human entered these. We figured them out from the text itself based on how we've trained the intelligence, okay, to auto-extract this kind of content. You'll also see over here on the right-hand side, there's a series of images. Now, when you think about Docxonomy, we go very deep in our analysis of how we look at content. So there are a lot of embedded objects that are inside of, in this case, a PDF. And we also extract each of those as what we would call children or relationships, and we analyze those independently and make them part of the overall index. So for instance, there's a label embedded in this document. So let's click on that and open it up. What we'll see here, there's a label that's embedded in there, and that's a JPEG image. Now we process that and do an OCR on it to the best of our ability, which is pretty good. It's pretty solid, but that becomes searchable data as well. So if I were searching on a term, let's say this Abilify mienta, I might not be pronouncing that right, but if I did a search on that and it happened to only exist in this label, I would still find this document because it's relevant. It's embedded inside the document. And most systems do not search that deep. But this is just one aspect of how powerful, the search index is. And of course, we can get back to the parent. We can go back to the relationship again of the parent, and we can see that. Another really key attribute here to kind of hone in on in this demo is that the similarity engine. So because of the content and what's being said inside of this document, we also can click this and open it up, and we can see that these other documents are very much relevant, that are similar, and we're making a recommendation that if you're interested in the one that you're looking at, you're probably interested in all these, and they're sorted in order from left to right. So most important, and then so on down, all based on how things are scored. So very powerful way to look at content and be able to search across it and analyze it. But that being said, let's jump back and let me touch on one more thing here that's important. When you find content and it's something that is relevant and you actually want to share that content with others, you really want to be able to share it, right? To send it along. So we've built natively into the application the ability to share content. So you can share it internally with just people within the system, or you can generate an external link to the document. You can make that a one-time link so that the next time the person clicks on the link that you send them, it will expire the share. It will no longer be active. Or you can choose to give it a duration of days or minutes or hours and tell it how long. You can set a password on it. So we'll say I'm going to set this for, let's say 60 minutes, right? And then I'm going to go ahead and generate that link. Once that link's generated, I can share it, and of course these all can be turned on or off. I can copy that to the clipboard and send that URL to somebody. Then when they click on that link, it will automatically bring them back to a viewer representation of this one document. That in this case, because they're external. And now if it's an internal link, they'll be challenged for username password. If it's external, they'll be able to view it because you've granted them access to do that. But we make it very easy to be able to share that content quickly with others. So I wanted to touch on that. But let's jump back to the search. And let's do another quick search. So let's search on depression. Okay, this is an interesting search here. So let's go ahead and do that. So as you see, the search results come back quickly, and what we find here is again 37 results that have come back, similar to what we've already seen before. But what's important is we see an image here. Well, this image is interesting, so I want to click on that image. So what we'll see is we get an image back with a picture inside of it, all right? So what you'll notice here from our relevance graph is that we're identifying various different attributes of that picture. So we have intelligence that basically analyzes imagery, any type of imagery, and detects or picks what's inside that image. And it makes that searchable. It makes it something you can look for. So whether this photograph is embedded in a document or whatever, we would pick up on these attributes. So as you can see here, we see there's a face, a cheek, a nose, facial expressions and things like that. And you can see from up here how accurate our prediction was, which is pretty solid. It drops off a little bit, but we also can identify that this is coming from a television advertisement. And so we're picking up on that this was from a video that was put out. And of course, the keyword here, depression, was another attribute that's tagged with that we're able to understand. And then of course, assign that as a value. So by searching on the search word depression, we were able to find this image. And so that's very powerful. What's even more powerful is this was inside of a video. So let's go ahead and click on that video and open that up and take a look at it. As we open this up, you'll see over here on the right-hand side, we analyze every single image inside of a video, okay? We analyze all the frames. We get a unique set of frames. Here's that one that we were just looking at. And we then tag all of those. So now when you're searching across your repository, as we talked about rich media and deep analysis, we're able to understand what's inside the video, what's going on, make predictions on that data, and make that part of the index search so that I can search for and look for attributes that are in videos, or any file for that matter, but definitely in videos, right? We do this for all images, regardless of where they come from. Also, in addition, over here, you'll notice that we do auto transcription. So we read, we do an attempt to hear what's being spoken in the video, convert that to text, and then analyze that text the same way we analyze everything else, right? Again, this is all automatic. It just happens by the fact that we picked up a video and this is how we process it, okay? And you can see here that in the case of this, the word depression, which is what we were searching on, is identified here, and we can jump you right to that segment as well. So let's go ahead and just click that.
Gradual changes in behavior, worsening depression, or thoughts of suicide.
So as you see, we can identify these attributes, and then we can jump you right to that section, right? And now if we click on the all segments, you'll see, we process every segment that way. We break things up into chunks, and then we analyze them. And it's how we go about doing that. So again, another, really super powerful feature. And again, from a similarity engine standpoint, you can see, well, if you're interested on these topics, the content that's being talked about in this video, you'll also be interested in this video and this video. There's a document over here. And of course, we could open up the show more and we can see all of that. So again, making recommendations, allowing you to be able to see that. So very, very powerful mechanism to be able to get at and look at content across the repository. So that's very powerful. Now we're going to do one more keyword search. Okay, so let's search. Let's say we're looking for medication guides, or we want to be alerted anytime that term is used. So let's do a search on medication guide. Here we go. We've got it right here, and we'll go ahead and execute that search. As you can see, our results come back quickly. And I want to be notified now about any time something comes into the system that has, this search term, right? So this is important to me, and I want to know about it. So what we can do here is we can go ahead and click save, and we can give it a name. So we'll just call it medication guide. Okay, real simple. Okay, we can turn on the system notification, which will be configured in your profile on how you want to be notified. There are many ways. So I could get a text, I can get an email, I can be notified, via notifications on my phone, I can be notified by the system, and so forth. So go ahead and simply just give it a name. Actually, you know what? Just for simplicity, I'm going to go ahead and make that an uppercase M, and then let's click add. As we can see there, it's been added now to the system. And so now I have this favorite. If I click on my favorites, I have this new favorite called medication guide. And that tracks now all of the content that comes into the system and allows me to be able to be notified anytime something new comes in. Now, I don't need to search this every day. Obviously, I can execute it right here and reissue the search. If I click on my recents tab here and we scroll up, we'll notice, oh, these are all of the most recent medications guides that are in there. I haven't added anything new, but this information is the most recent, right? 6 days ago, 6 days ago, 17 days ago, 18 days ago, and so on. So if I add a new piece of content to the system and it has those keywords or any question or any type of a query that I've saved, it will automatically show up here as the topmost results, but I'll receive a notification being informed, hey, I have something that came in. It's important. You might want to click on it. There's a link on it. It'll bring you right back to the system and allow you to be able to view that content. This is powerful because it allows you to not have to search for the content all the time, but yet have the content find you. Very important aspect of how search should work and how it should be able to understand that. So another powerful feature that we've hit on here. So let's return back to the search screen and let's do a different kind of search. So we've done mostly keyword searches now, which are, you would expect things to work that way, very powerful, and it does all of that. But let's go ahead and do a search now where we actually want to limit the source or what we want to actually search on. And in this case, we're going to search a structured source. And when I say structured, what I mean is we're going to search a database, okay? Something that has been archived to the system and that is stored. And more importantly, we're just going to search on keywords. So the keywords that we search here, as we're filtering now, I'm saying, hey, I'm not looking across everywhere. I do know that it's in here, but I want to search this one location for it. I can put a filter here, apply that, and then I can search on, let's say, the word pepper. All right. I use pepper because, if I can spell it, sorry. There we go. I use the word pepper because it's just an item that's in this food database. Okay, this is a large food database that we ingested. It came from a structured connector. And what you'll notice here is that this information comes back. It works exactly the same way. My source is filtered now. It's only returning results for this one repository because I've pre-filtered that. And let's go ahead and jump in as pepper as a spice and just kind of open that up. And what's different about this is that you're seeing data come back in the UI. So this is powerful. We can search structured and unstructured content, regardless of where it comes from, okay? And in the case of this unstructured content, there's no documents. There's nothing that's associated with it. It's data in a database in tables. And I'm very easily able to search that and identify. And then we have a configuration on the back end, which we'll show shortly, that allows you to easily map these values and then display it within a user interface. And as you can see here, we have a whole host of name value pairs, so we can link up name, scientific name, description, and so forth. We have a grid mechanism, so we can actually say, okay, well, I want to sort on the grid, show me 15 values. I want to group by, let's say I want to group by the class, so I can easily drag that up. I can say, hey, I'm only interested in this, so let me do a filter, and I get back to my data here. And so it just shows you the power of the different ways that we can search different kinds of data and how we can limit and focus the scope of that very easily with just one or two clicks. So very powerful. Let's do another search here. So let's go ahead and remove this guy and clear that. And now we're just going to go back. We're searching across the entire system. But we've been doing keyword searches up to this point. As I said, we've done a filtered search now where we've kind of isolated it to a specific repository, and that can be one to many repositories. There's no limit to that. But let's do what we would expect. We ask Google questions in the public domain. Let's ask a question of our data. So I'm going to ask a question here. How many Botox procedures have been performed? Now, this is going to answer the question based on the data that we actually have in the system. It's going to interpret that this is a question and it's going to attempt to answer it. Can't answer every question, but it's pretty darn good. Let's take a look. As you can see, the results come back quickly. And what we see here is this question answer block at the top saying, hey, approximately 11 million. So again, based on the data that exists in the system, and of course, the more data that you have, the better this even becomes. But based on our demo system and the data that we have in there, we were able to answer this question, approximately 11 million. And we can jump to that answer just by clicking on the highlighted term. What's even more powerful is this answer was derived by something that was stated, or it was talked about, it was said. It didn't exist in text or in a database. It was actually spoken in a video. So again, with that deep analysis and how far down we go, very powerful concepts that get implemented within the tool, all in an experience or a usability that we're all familiar with every day. Very simple and easy to do. And so we think that this is a very powerful tool and that you'll find great use out of it because we can aggregate data from so many different places and be able to give you this kind of a power. Now, as I said, I don't want to go too deep, but it's important to understand how easy it is to configure for your own situation, right? So we talk about auto classification. When we add a document to the system, it automatically gets classified. So if we go back and we search on, well, let's do medication guide. We already did that, but let's go ahead and execute that search. As we can see here, and the results come back, we have auto-classified the content, right? So we know that's a medication guide, and that's what we're searching on. We also see there are some other classes that, because of the terms that we're using to search, came back. So we can see there's clinical study report. We can see there's a study protocol in here. There's a CV or a resume. So, these classifications automatically happen, and they're trained very easily within the system. So if we go ahead and look at this document and we open up the medication guide and we look at the training, we'll see that when we predicted that this was a medication guide by the engine, we were 99.991% sure that this was a medication guide based on how the engine's been trained. Now, this training exercise, there's pre-built models that already exist for many different class types that come out of the box, if you want to, sort of say it that way. But deeper on this, if you actually go in, you can see that you can configure and train this yourself. So by doing that, let's kind of jump to the back end. And let's just take a quick look at that. So let's look at the file classification tab. So what we'll see here is it's very, very easy to teach the system about new classes, right? So all we really need to know is we need a folder somewhere, maybe on a file share, most likely, right, of 25 or more samples of the type of document it is. And they can be a mix. It doesn't matter. But, for instance, if they're approval letters and that's a type that you want to, teach it on, you'll upload and give us, in this case, we use 90, examples of an approval letter. Now, once you load this up, you click the train button and execute the training. We did this a while back, the last time we trained this particular model, but you'll execute the training, and in about 30 minutes, it'll add the new values and it'll train the new type on the new documents that you've added. And from that point on, anytime the system sees a document that's like that, again, not the same document, it's contextually like that. It's very, very intelligent. It will understand, oh, that's a packaging document. Oh, that's a microbiology review. Oh, that's a study protocol. And it will automatically classify it for you. You as a user don't have to do that. Now, if you're uploading this content or syncing this content, let's say from a Documentum repository or Viva, and that's already been classified, that's fine. That's a mapping exercise during the configuration, right, of how we ingest. And we'll take the classification from the source system. So it doesn't have to be learned by us. You can also run what we call in a mixed mode, where it'll take that. It will make that the primary classification type, but it will still predict what it thinks it is based on what you've trained. And you may choose to go back and say, oh, this was misfiled in the source system. It actually is a prescribing information document. It's not a clinical study report. And so it was misclassified. So we're able to resolve those types of things. We also can do things like deduplication. We track, whenever documents are duplicated, we know all about that. And there's a whole host of things when we're crawling your environment where we can identify and find these attributes for you and let you know about that. But that's sort of icing on the cake. It's just things that we do automatically. As we said, configuring the connectors is a very simplistic process. You literally go into the external data connection and you can set one up. So for instance, let's go ahead and look at, here's a SQL database one. We'll just look at that just because it's right here. All right, the one that we use for the food database. You give it a name, you set some basic mapping up, you set some permissions on it, you set a schedule. How often do you want it to run? You can have it run every minute, or you can have it run every, once a day or once a week or once a month. It's totally configurable. Tell it what type of connector it is, what are the root credentials that are needed in order to access the database. Am I crawling just report-based data, or am I getting binary files? Like, for instance, are there blobs that are embedded in the database? Stuff like this. This is all pretty technical, but it's simply just a configuration. You fill out the query, you set up your mapping, you save this, and then you basically turn it on. And once you turn it on the behind the firewall, it just does its work. That's all you have to do to connect something together, whether it's a Documentum or SharePoint or a file share or Viva or database or email. You just add them to here and you map them. Very, very simple way to get stuff connected and to sync stuff to be indexed so that you can then search. And every single one of these that are running now become a common place to go here within Docxonomy and search across all of them and get answers. Now, before we finish, let's jump over to My Files. My Files is an area that whenever you find something that you want to search on and you want to associate it with within the UI to your sort of view, you can just click the little pin on there whenever you see that, and it will automatically show up in here. And of course, you can filter on this and sort this and so forth. But what I want to show here in particular is around relationships. We talked about the similarity engine and how that works. And what we wanted to show, we had a use case that really sort of started to develop out while we were at a couple of the DIA shows recently. And so we were real kind of curious as to, we felt like we could solve this problem quite easily with the similarity engine. So without any work or any change or anything, just literally uploading files, we were able to deal with this issue that we were hearing about regarding agency correspondence. So we trained a class and we taught it about agency correspondence. And we mocked up some data. We had to fake this data because it's not data that's usually in the public domain. So we just sort of, made some stuff up here. But, it starts with sort of an FDA letter. So we received a letter here. They uploaded it just recently. So I see it just came in. Literally, they must have uploaded it while we're on the webinar here. I'm going to go ahead and open that up. And I'll see here that within this letter, that this was a letter informing me that the awesome drug here that we're working on has not been approved because they require some additional information around Section 510 of 21 CFR Part 207. So what we're interested in is, well, we've had a lot of other drugs that we've put out there. So what, is there any similarity? So we'll immediately see up here in our similarity engine that we have other letters that have been found. So let's click on this one here and open it up and just kind of scroll down and we'll say, oh, well, this is a different letter. It came at a different time. And we'll notice here that, it was similar question was asked, right? So as I said, we mocked this up, but we're automatically able to identify this just by having the content within the system. So this is very powerful. We can also look at the relationship here and say, oh, well, here's the response, our official response to that. And now let's just open it in the viewer in this case. So we can, see here from Acme Pharmaceutical that we made up here. This was our response to that original letter from that other drug, that super drug that we were talking about, not awesome drug. So I just wanted to close on that to show that, there are a tremendous amount of use cases that exist within the system that allow us to be able to surface this type of intelligence, this type of knowledge regarding the content if we index it, right? So everything that happened in here, it's all just automatic, and that you as a user didn't have to enter anything. We're able to derive these concepts. Today, we surface maybe 20% of the data that we process today. There is so much more richness in the data that we have underneath and how we've analyzed it and all of the enhancements that we've made to that unstructured data. So as we work with you, more use cases, more discussions, more needs, I'm sure we're going to be able to find even more uses for this, but it's quite powerful. So I wanted to share this with you. So that being said, I think it's time to close this out. Let me close this and let's shift back over to the slides. So as we stated, we were trying to keep this between 45 to 50 minutes, which I think we're coming right up on the 50 mark of this webinar. And I believe that there's been some questions, and we've been answering those questions via the chat with the group, as I've been informed. I just want to let everybody know that we thank you very, very much for attending. Please feel free to connect into us at canyouFindIt.com to learn more about what we're doing. If you have any questions, by all means, reach out to us. You can contact us individually, as I showed earlier, or you can reach us at sales@docxonomy.com if you want to send an email. But we're very excited about what we're showing here today. We're very grateful that you all attended, and we really, really look forward to talking to you more in depth about your use cases and the use of Docxonomy across your organization. Thank you very much, and have a great day.